Hey guys, just wanted to jump on here really quick. I've had a lot of people reach out to me in terms of how they can support what I'm doing. I am doing this full time now, and if you'd like to contribute, if you like and value the work that I'm doing and like to contribute, on every single episode, I have a title "Support My Work." Underneath it, there's a Venmo, Locals, Cash App, or if you prefer not to use one of those methods, you can mail a check or money order to PO Box 25383, Scottsdale, Arizona 85255 9998. So, again, thank you for all the support. Appreciate it and look forward to more conversations ahead. I guess no quiet Saturdays, no quiet periods ahead right now, right, Matt? With everything going on, I don't even know what the words to start this with because it's like we're 11 days into the new year, and I mean I knew things would pick up speed, but man,
Yeah, well, California is literally sucking out all the oxygen, you know, rightly so, because um, this isn't like a hurricane that comes through and it's gone. This is a hurricane that is just like staying, right? This is a hurricane that is only like growing by categories because they're talking about how little of it is contained. The next day or two, the winds might get back up over 50, 60 miles an hour. And when the wind blows like that, embers from like almost dead fires will kick back up. And these embers can travel like, a mile ahead of the flame. So it can jump highways and set things on fire far in advance of the actual, like, the bright line you see on the aerial views. That's like the actual highest, hottest combustion line, like the line of attack, but the embers are flying out ahead of it. So it all is based on the wind, and these fires are not out. And much more of Los Angeles could burn. Already, people don't understand this. I don't think so. I like doing maps all the time. More than twice the area, two times Manhattan has burned in terms of square miles. Most people, if you say, what is an acre? They use terms like acres, like, oh, 35,000 acres have burned. Most people barely know what an acre is. It's like 209 feet by 209 feet. So it's kind of an archaic measurement, like hectares or cubits, right? Rods, furlongs. So it's easier for me to understand when you get to big numbers, it's easier to understand square miles. And there's a number just for everybody to remember. Every farmer knows this since he's 10 years old. But 640 acres is a square mile. That's 1 mile by 1 mile is equal to 640 acres. So and that's called a section. Like if you're out in Texas, that's a section. So a half section is 320 acres, a quarter section, etc. Well, what's burned right now is two times the size of Manhattan, more than two times the size of Manhattan, which is like 23 square miles. That's Manhattan. More than twice that has already burned. And that's only like less than 10% of Los Angeles. And it's already a disaster that we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg of this disaster. Because it's not like a hurricane that passes through, and if you don't live in, Southwest Florida or Northwest North Carolina, it's done. You don't care. And the numbers of people that are actually homeless as a result of say, the last two hurricanes is fairly small. In Western North Carolina, it's grim, obviously. It's snowing, it's freezing, but you're not talking about hundreds of thousands of people homeless. Most of those people left and have gone somewhere else. There are not many people literally living in tents at this point. But and the area, when you're talking about these river valleys in Western North Carolina, it's very spread out, along rivers in towns like Asheville and other towns. So the damage is not just localized and massive in a big urban area. What's happened in Los Angeles, I compare this. I had this analogy in my head today, especially since it's a fire. When medical people talk about burns, they use two measurements. They talk about the degree, like a sunburn, a first-degree burn, a second-degree burn, a third-degree burn. That's how deep it goes, how much damage it's doing. Sunburn can be real painful, but a month later, you forgot all about it, right? First and second-degree burns, you might be left with some scarring. Third-degree burns, you're in a serious problem because it's like going all the way through the muscle. You're going to need grafting. And then the other metric that they use for burns is percentage of the body. So if you've got somebody, let's say, who's got third-degree burns on 60% of the body, you're almost talking about, if you're me, I'd rather be dead. The chance of you surviving is very low. You're going to get infected, live in pain, your life has changed forever. It'd be better to be like a multiple amputee than have third-degree burns on 60% of your body. Well, when you look at Pacific Palisades and the other sections of massive areas that have been hit, square miles, that's like a third-degree burn right down into the muscle, because you've not just lost your house, like a tornado rips through Norman, Oklahoma, right? And it's like a plow going across a field, wrecking, say, a quarter mile of houses for miles maybe. But on each side, everything's intact. The Home Depot 10 miles away is still in business. You can go and buy plywood tomorrow. There in Pacific Palisades and the other areas, everything's gone. Your neighbors' houses are gone. Your mother's house is gone. The school your kid goes to is gone. Your post office is gone. Your Walgreens and CVS are gone. Your supermarket is gone. Everything is gone. So it's like literally like a bomb was dropped on it. It's going to have to be totally rebuilt. The streets are still there, which is good, but all the electrical infrastructure that was above ground is wrecked. So you're not going to be able to just move people back in, even in Western North Carolina, where there was mudslides and everything else. People can get a tiny house, move it onto the land. Water is available because it's Western North Carolina. You can run generators that are donated. In Pacific Palisades, you're talking about square miles of these little plots. In many cases, these are like the middle class houses that you saw from the air, where there's just mile after mile of quarter-acre plots. So you're talking like, 100 by 100 feet or less. And there's just miles of them. And they're all destroyed. Nobody's going to just be able to go back in there and put a tent on that property. This was very highly densely populated land, for more than a half of a century. And it was fine, it was beautiful, as long as it was the original demography of Southern California. So Southern California, I was born in 57, so I grew up as a kid, Beach Boys were still on the radio, kind of, that whole surfer, happy town, Frankie Avalon and Nut Funicello, beach blanket bingo, that was California. That was a homogeneous, white, European, high IQ place. After World War II, tons of GIs that said, I'm not going back to Kansas. I'm not going back to New Hampshire. I'm staying right here in Southern California. They wind up working for these tech firms, for aerospace industries. The area attracted, beside the population that was already there, a lot of people at the end of World War II that had a little bit more on the ball, that didn't want to go back to the old grind in the old town. And Southern California just flourished. And in a high trust, a high trust, fairly high IQ society, you can have 1 million people living in those tiny plots. I mean, it's even though they're individual houses in most cases and apartment complexes, it's still very high population density. You're not going to farm on your 70 foot by 100 foot plot. You're not going to be able to sink a well and survive there. That population density can only exist with modern urban infrastructure working and intact. When that whole place is demolished, Nobody can just move back onto their little plot and rebuild. Not to mention, they won't be able to get a permit. It's going to have to be environmentally cleared. Who knows what's going to happen with that? You're talking about a foot of toxic ash. The whole area is like a 9/11 at the base of the Twin Towers. You know, you go digging around in there, you're breathing in all of that chemical polyvinyl chloride dust and everything else. It's the pile that's throughout these areas is extremely unhealthy. So people are going to be having lung and eye problems going forward, and that's just, you know, piled on top of the rest of the declining and collapsing medical system. But the worst part of it, you know, this happened to Tokyo, which, by the way, Tokyo, I think, is like 28 million people in Tokyo, and you can leave your wallet on the subway; it'll get returned to you. You don't have to lock your bicycle because it's a high IQ, homogenous, high trust society. When you lose that, if you replaced half of the Japanese in Tokyo with people from Somalia, Ethiopia, Chechnya, it would very soon not be Tokyo. It would be, you know, like, it would be like Syria. It would be, you know, warfare. A place like Tokyo can only exist because it's all Japanese that are all cooperating, that all see the big picture. That was Southern California. So the infrastructure, the human matrix developed with a high IQ, homogenous population. After World War II, and even before, but to a smaller degree with Chinese in San Francisco, for example, the East Asians that moved didn't necessarily, you know, mix much with the whites, but the East Asians, I'm saying Japanese, Koreans, Chinese, they're also high IQ and get the big picture. So they would maintain their own neighborhoods in perfect order. But when you have a quilt pattern of African Americans, Mexicans, Guatemalans, El Salvadorans, people from all of the stands, the social cohesion is completely lost. And you can keep a damper on it as long as all the infrastructures work. As long as people can make it to work, even though when there's a traffic jam, your half-hour drive turns into a 2-hour drive a couple times a week, which is very frustrating. But it can still work until the rug gets pulled out on the infrastructure, like what happened right now. So we're going to see a deep problem. This is just the first inning of a long, long problem. Because you've now got tens or hundreds of thousands of virtual refugees, many of whom had their insurance canceled because of the hassle between the state of California and the insurance companies over raising the rates. The insurance companies pull out, people are uncovered. Their entire wealth, their entire nest egg was that house. They might have bought that house in the 1960s for $30,000 or $40,000 on that quarter-acre plot, the 1,200 square foot house on the quarter-acre plot that they bought for $50,000 is now worth $500,000 or $800,000 until it burned down. Now it's not. Now it's a uninhabitable no-go zone. So these people, that was their nest egg. It's gone. What's going to happen? I think we're going to see companies like BlackRock swoop in, like they did and are doing in Western North Carolina, and give people these quit claim offers. Here's $75,000, sign it, move to Texas, rent an apartment, just give us the property. They're going to have to bulldoze these places like Gaza. They're just going to have to bulldoze, not quarter-acre plots. They're going to have to buy out, or the government will condemn. The government will say it's unsafe. There's no foreseeable chance to rebuild. Everybody gets $100,000 or whatever amount, 500,000, $1 million, because they'll just print the money. But they're going to say you can't go back. That's uninhabitable now. And BlackRock will go in with bulldozers and build in the nicer property, they'll build mansions for the wealthy, and in the not so nice property, they'll build high density apartment buildings. But that form of that California that we remember, of the thousands and thousands of quarter acre plots, people living in harmony, living the beach stream, that's gone. That's completely over. And the reason why I'm harping on the IQ thing and the homogenous culture thing is because, and I've seen this for a long time. There are two, and to me, this is just my own theory. Maybe there are more, but these two for sure. There are two required pillars of civilization, and they both depend on having an average high IQ society. It helps a lot if it's homogenous. In a few cases, like say Singapore, where it's not necessarily homogenous, the IQ is very high. Because what you need for the two pillars of civilization that to a great degree depend on IQ, you have to understand the concept and live the concept of deferred gratification. That means I'm not going to quit school in 8th grade and become a gangbanger or get pregnant, right? I'm going to stay in high school, go to college, doesn't matter, state college, whatever, get some kind of a useful degree, not lesbian basket weaving, a useful degree, a useful skill, become an electrician or an engineer, but I'm going to put off getting that home until I can afford it. I'm going to work hard for years and save my money. I'm going to live within my means for years to save that nest egg to move somewhere where I can afford to buy a business, buy a house, all of that. People with a low IQ can't do that. That's why it's the flip side of the deferred gratification is what they call low impulse control. When you say, how come this ethnic group in school is always getting sent to the principal for acting out, for yelling, for fighting in class? They say, oh, he has a problem with it, his impulse control. That's directly correlated to IQ. I mean, unless there's a brain injury or something, you have a population of 80 IQ and below, say Haiti, Somalia. That's why those countries look like they do. You have millions of people who will never get the concept of deferred self-gratification. You can explain it to them. You can put whiteboard lectures, show them videos, give them a year of training, and as soon as they've left the educational environment, they'll just take whatever money they've got, throw a party, and forget it because it didn't sink in. And the other pillar of civilization. So number one is deferred gratification, deferred self-gratification. Work hard, save money, long-term goal in the future that we're all working toward. The other one is enlightened self-interest. This means even when my political faction gains control, we don't massacre our adversaries. We don't go Rwanda and the Hutus say, now we've got the power, let's kill all the Tutsis, okay? Also directly related to average IQ. So if you have a country, low average IQ, low impulse control, no ability to save for the future, plan for the future, I'm talking about the average. Now, obviously, there are exceptional people in every country. But if they don't have the concept of enlightened self-interest, as soon as they, like, for example, with the Pakistani rape gangs in Europe, the Pakistanis that come don't say, oh, there's an English girl walking by herself across the park. I'm lusting for her, and the Quran says she's fair game. However, I want to live in a great England where my children will also be safe. So I'm not going to grab that girl, call all my friends on the cell phone and have a gang rape, because I want to live not like in Pakistan. I want to live like in jolly old England where people have self-control. They can't do it. That's, some people refer to it as the magic dirt theory, that if you bring 1 million Pakistanis to England, they become English. or Somalis to Minnesota. They become Minnesotans. They don't. You're just importing their pathologies, and it's very highly related to having a homogeneous population, an above 100 IQ on the average, so that people have the enlightened self-interest and the deferred gratification. If you don't have those elements, your country is going to fail. So you can build Southern California, and it's glorious from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, Surfing USA, right? It was fantastic. Just look at YouTube videos of the color restored YouTube videos of Southern California in the 60s. It was one of the greatest places on the planet. And then gradually, by importing new populations, you lose the IQ, you lose the homogeneous population. Now you become tribal, very tribal. You can see it in films. One of the classic films of the 90s is Falling Down with Michael Douglas and Robert Duvall. That's California in that transitional period where most things are still working. You know, there's people at the beach roller skating on the boardwalk and going out on the pier. There's guys on the golf course golfing. But in the seams in the middle, you can already see the gangland coming up. You can see the tension. People, it's a classic movie. Highly recommend it. That was 40 years or 30 years ago. Okay. That is 30 years in the past. It's so much worse now. And when the infrastructure collapses, the last restraints will go off of the imported savages, totally off. So a lot of the looting gangs that we're seeing are not Americans. They just look at this as an opportunity. They're in some cases setting fires to give themselves more looting opportunities. Right now, the police, as well as the fire department, are completely overwhelmed. If you own a little jewelry store and somebody breaks through the back door and you dial 911, you'll be lucky if anybody answers. The criminal element completely understands this. So the entire social fabric is ripping right now in Southern California. And obviously there's a complete power vacuum. Gavin Newsom said it's a local problem. The water is a local problem. Let's have a commission to study the problem. He's the governor. The mayor knew these Santa Ana winds were coming. She flew to Ghana, right? All of the fire department chiefs are like black lesbians promoted on DEI. They're idiots. So you have a complete leadership vacuum. There's no president. Biden goes out there, talks about having a great grandchild. There's a total power vacuum. They should be bringing in fire trucks and National Guard from all the surrounding states. Like I was listening to Bannon this morning. This is an all hands on deck. This is not a problem where you incrementally try to find more solutions as the fire is increasing exponentially. To get ahead of it, you would need to call all the adjoining governors, have them put all their National Guard on standby. Anything that can bring water, anything that can bring in water, they should be already on the way to California. And they're not doing it. They're just constantly playing catch up. Now they're talking about if it jumps over the 405 and some other highways, Hollywood, Brentwood could burn to the ground. And when the wind kicks back up, they're saying this is a lull. We're in a lull. So people outside of Southern California get the idea, well, it must be dying down. And in a few days, this story will be over. The fire isn't going to be over. The displaced people can never go back. Who's going to pay for them? Is the federal government just going to print money endlessly? I mean, this is a huge wound. And going back to Japan as an example, we firebombed Tokyo. And we also bombed Berlin to rubble and Dresden. We bombed them to rubble. But within months of that happening, Japanese and Germans self-organized. They were out there picking up bricks hand by hand, cleaning and stacking bricks. they were not fighting over the last scrap of food. They were already figuring out how to cooperate and rebuild, because they have homogenous societies, high IQ. They get the principle of deferred self-gratification. They get enlightened self-interest. So instead of going Mad Max in the ashes of Tokyo and Berlin, as soon as the fires were out, the Allies are in, they began to rebuild. And within 10 years, Tokyo and Berlin were largely rebuilt. I don't see that happening right now in Southern California, because we're going tribal. We're going to have all of these ethnic minorities that already hate each other fighting over the scraps, with looters taking advantage of every chance that they can. So I'm very pessimistic on Southern California right now.
Well, do you follow Bill Malugin on X?
Yes, yeah, the nicest hair in media.
He just wrote about, posted a video from the 405, the Palisades fire, and then LA Fire Alerts. He reposted masked individuals entering a home in the Palisades area. They wouldn't put the address up, but immediate request for law enforcement for possible burglary in progress. So you got people wearing masks just going into these homes, and people that live there, good luck making a 911 call.
They're undamaged mansions that people have had a mandatory evacuation. So looters on scooters, which is like, I wrote a Substack like a month ago on motorbike warfare in Syria. When everything is gridlocked, whether it's in a war situation or an urban disaster situation, anything with two wheels can get through lanes of gridlock. And in fact, in California, I don't know how it is lately, but when I was there, it was one of the states where they allowed lane splitting. So if you're stuck on, I-5 driving from, San Diego to LA, and you're just parked in gridlock, motorcycles zoom right down the middle. And maybe there's only 10 miles of gridlock, but that could be the next 2 hours because of an accident or something. The motorcycle right through. Well, the same thing works in a urban disaster situation. Gangs on motorbikes and even little scooters, there's no way you can block the road from them. They'll just pick the thing up and put it around a barricade and keep going. That the guy in New Orleans that drove his pickup truck down the sidewalk, he just went around a cop car on the sidewalk. And that was with a big pickup truck. Imagine how much easier it is for gangs on motorbikes. And we've already seen these gangs sort of like flexing their muscles, beating their chest by doing what they call the takeovers, the intersection takeovers, or even on the bridge. They did it on the Golden Gate Bridge like a month ago, where using cell phones to coordinate texting, 100 motorbikes show up and boom, there's no way police can touch that. They're zooming around like wild Indians on motorbikes, popping wheelies, doing whatever they want, robbing people if they want, and then splitting up. Well, the same thing is happening in Southern California now with gangs. These people are using the two-wheel vehicles to get around any kind of blockades. In a lot of cases, you don't even need to be on the road. You can just get on the dirt outside of the road and circle up around these very wealthy areas. They're dirt bikes. They can climb, right? I mean, they can go right up the canyon. And then they're in your house. And the police said it's a mandatory evacuation. So you're a rich Hollywood producer. You're gone. They know it. They don't care if there's a camera in your house. I think James Wood's house was saved, but he had texted, or he had put on Twitter a couple days before, that all of his houses around him were burning and that all of his fire alarms were going off. So getting an alarm, what the hell does that do? He didn't even know that his house was still there till he physically arrived. So in this environment, having doorbell cameras and motion alarms and everything else, who cares? 5 guys come into your house wearing masks and rob you. What are you going to do? The police aren't coming. You've got no, and you can't. If you stay, you risk being burned alive. If you leave, you risk being robbed. And so this is what happens when you have a densely populated area, but you've lost the high trust homogeneous society that built it. That they can't build Pacific Palisades in Haiti. All right, there's never going to be a Pacific Palisades in the beautiful beaches of Somalia. It's never going to happen. But if civilized people build Pacific Palisades, and then uncivilized people with low IQs, tribal people, savages are brought in, they can definitely wreck it. And that's what we're seeing in Southern California.
When do they estimate that they'll get a handle on this fire? I mean, it's again, I'm looking at Bill Malugan. I'm looking at his X right now. It's 12:30 Mountain Time. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like they're in the densely populated Mandeville Canyon above Brentwood, and homes are on fire. That's by Matt Finn. Bill Malugan reposted it. This exposes entire regions of West LA to spread of fire. So fire is slowly making its way down the canyon.
Right, and so if it began to rain, or if the winds died to nothing and it rained, great. That would be wonderful. That's, they say in the military all the time, hope is not a plan. Mayor Karen Bass, who I'm writing her name now as Karen B. Bass. She knew these winds were coming and she still went to Ghana. That's the low IQ, right? Can't defer your gratification. You can't call the super important future president of Ghana and say, sorry, I just can't make it. There's something really important here in Los Angeles I got to take care of. She deserted her post. When she came back, she was useless, couldn't answer questions. So they're not getting ahead of these fires. It's all a function of the wind, and you've got the arsonists. So you have, if all the fires in the Pacific Palisades area are put out, you're still going to have arsonists going upwind, up the mountains above the wealthiest houses. That's where the wealthy people live, way up at the end of the canyons. You're going to have somebody up there even further throwing flares in the brush because of this thing some people are calling the Luigi effect. This is the anti-capitalist, anti-social. They just want to see it burn, right? They hate the happiness of people that are not homeless. A lot of the fires are set by just frustrated homeless people. We've seen videos of it, people of just homeless bums just trying to light brush on fire, just because they hate their life, they hate their failure. They look around and they see people driving nice cars, living in nice houses, and they want to burn it down. So you're going to see, if the wind picks back up over 50, 60 again, we're going to see new fire outbreaks. This isn't over. This is definitely not over. And you don't have the leaders in charge that are, Newsom should be bringing in all of the surrounding governors, having them sending every water truck, all of these National Guard vehicles, they self-support in the field with water trucks. They need to all be heading to California, because you have to anticipate more empty reservoirs. You have to anticipate, more fire hydrant failures. You have to anticipate it. You can't say, well, if Brentwood catches on fire, then we'll see how the fire hydrants are doing. You have to assume the fire hydrants are going to do badly. And you've got to be sending the forces from out of the state. They're not doing that. Power vacuum. So, and obviously, they're bringing in all of the aircraft that they can. A lot of them are coming from California. Canada, right? These big, the big flying boats that scoop up the lakes. They're coming from Canada. Why doesn't America? We'll spend $10 billion building an aircraft carrier, an electric aircraft carrier that can't launch aircraft that don't work. Okay, how about spend $100 million, which is like nothing. That's like a couple of 3 F-35s for a fleet of these air tankers that can be stationed. I forget if it was Bill Buford or who I was reading today. It's a great idea. Why don't they have air wings of these hangared and just ready? Build them, hangar them, have them ready. Wherever there's a fire in the United States, within 4 hours, you got 10 of the biggest ones putting water on it right away. Not 2 or 3 days later when it's out of control. I mean, we build aircraft carriers and jets and submarines, but we can't save our own cities, just like our army doesn't defend our own border. This country has got seriously effed up priorities. We're defending the Ukraine. We've got troops in Syria, but we have no troops on the Mexican border and an invasion going on. And now we see a consequence of this invasion. Millions of savages who hate America, hate us, and given the chance, will rape, will kill, will burn, will steal. And now they've got the chance. So
what do you say to somebody who like lives in the area, say Marina Del Rey or Manhattan Beach, and I don't think the fire is close to touching them, but they're pretty close proximity. Like if it were me, I tell them, and pardon my language here, but get the fuck out of there. Leave for a week if you can, and just let things clear before.
Oh yeah, everybody look at the top strata, the movie stars, when they say, "Oh, my mansion burned down," that just means they're flying to their mansion in Colorado. Okay. But at the big end of the pyramid, there are people living paycheck to paycheck with $5,000 in the bank, and their entire nest egg is their paid off house, if it's paid off, and now it's a pile of ashes. These people can't afford airfare anywhere. In a lot of cases, even their car got wrecked. Their car got trapped. They went on foot. They're literally people living with just the clothes on their back, the sneakers on their feet. That's all they've got. They don't even, in many cases, have a wallet. This is going to be a very long, ongoing problem. And the completely dysfunctional government of California is not helping. Can't verify this, but I've been seeing reports that fire trucks from other states are not being allowed into California because they're not California emission compliant. I mean, this is like the smelt, the Delta smelt. We can't fill our reservoirs because we have to let the water rush down to the ocean to provide a habitat for the Delta smelt, which is like a goldfish the size of your finger, right? It's not a commercial anything. So to save the Delta smelt, the reservoirs go dry. And now fire trucks from other states can't come into California. You don't use the right gasoline. You don't have the right kind of exhaust pipe. So we can't use you. It's like, are you effing kidding me? I don't know if that's true. It sounds even for California, that sounds like too much.
Imagine if you have an electric car right now. I mean, you can't charge it anywhere. You're stuck.
Yeah, and if it lights off, you can't put it out. It requires like a complete hazmat response for one EV that's on fire. It doesn't go out. Oh
God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Cybertruck that was on fire outside of the Trump Tower in Vegas. They had to bring in this like 50-foot by 50-foot special black tarp to put over it, like a fire retardant tarp, to cut off its oxygen because it's making its own fire. It's like a thermite grenade. It's like a giant thermite grenade. Not to mention in hurricanes when they're flooded, like if your EV is in a car in a garage that gets flooded, there's a real good chance that the batteries short out and that causes a fire. So yeah, there's big problems with that. But the bottom line is, even in beautiful Southern California, greatest climate, everything is there, industry, mountains, beaches, scenic overlooks, whatever you want, it's there. That beautiful Southern California was built by a homogeneous population with high IQ that could pack themselves in, one family on a less than quarter-acre plot for miles, and everybody's enjoying themselves, going to the beach, got a job. You import millions of savages that do not share your beliefs, that don't have it, that they're bringing an average IQ at the savage level, 75, 80, 85. Those tribes will still tribe up. They won't just mix into the population. So when you say, well, Matt, if a million people with an 80 IQ move in, that just bumps the IQ down like a tiny little bit. Right. But that million of 80 IQ aren't blending in. they're staying as one tribe, one dysfunction tribe. And then when the lights go out, when there's a hurricane, or in this case, this big fire, their tribal instincts kick in. They're on scooters looting. They're on motorbikes looting. I mean, bringing these people in was sabotage. I always say, if somebody brought a honey badger, a rabid, starving honey badger, into a kindergarten, right? Opened the door, opened the cage, threw the honey badger into the kindergarten, and the honey badger kills all the kids. Do you blame the honey badger, or do you blame the guy that brought the honey badger into the kindergarten? Obviously, the honey badger is just a honey badger. It's doing what it does. So whoever brings a million savages, opens the door, flies them into America, completely lets the border go, brings buses for them, sends plane tickets for them, from Haiti, Colombia, Venezuela. Oh, it's too hard to walk up the Darien Gap. We'll send airplanes for you. We'll give you debit cards. We'll put you in hotels. We'll give you cell phones. Those traitors are the ones that brought the honey badger into the kindergarten. So I'm not even angry at these third world savages that are running amok right now in Southern California. They're just like honey badgers. They're just doing what they do, whether it's in Venezuela or Somalia or wherever. But the people that brought them in knew what they were doing. And that was sabotage. That was treason. That was intentional destruction of our country.
Do you think if people, back to what I said earlier, if people are living there and they have the means to leave right now, even just for a week, and let things kind of clear, I would get the fuck out of there.
Oh, definitely. And a lot of people will never go back because they're going to, that week out of California, they're going to be waiting for the all clear, and the all clear is not going to come. It's going to become more and more evident over the coming weeks and months. These stories will drop one after the other. Oh, it's really toxic. There'll be stories about the toxic soup and all the people coughing and hacking. And is this going to be like 9/11 with the pile, with all the firemen dying of cancer? Can't go back in there. Can't go back. It's a health hazard. So the 1 week that you spend out of California could turn into forever. Like Katrina. A lot of people left Katrina. They drove to Houston, and they never went back. They just never went back. That was it. And the people that get a BlackRock buyout, somebody offers you $75,000 a check right now, check in hand. Your house that you bought for $50,000 was last valued at $500,000. Now it's valued at $0 because it's in the middle of a toxic wasteland. So BlackRock hands you a check for $75,000 and says, move to Tennessee. That's a good down payment on the house in Tennessee. This is going to drain the productive people out of California more than that's already happening.
Well, and we haven't even talked on the air quality from all this. Do you think the damage from the terms of air quality is worse than 9/11?
I don't know, but people are like trying to shovel through the dust with like a little paper mask on.
I remember when I was there 6 years ago, there was a fire in Malibu like the week before. I was there a couple of days after, and I remember staying in LA, like close to Manhattan Beach, and you could just see the fog. But one of the things that stood out to me, I parked somewhere to meet some friends at a restaurant and came back, and there were ashes all over the car.
Yeah, and ashes are not just ashes. The ashes from even different kinds of wood have very different effects on you. Probably at one of the worst ends is volcanic ash, because people just think it's like smoke. It's not. If you put volcanic ash on a microscope slide and you zoom way down with an electron microscope, it's like shards of glass. It's like broken glass. Okay, you could use it to like polish out scratches on your car, right? It's like a mild abrasive, but that mild abrasive, you breathe it into your lungs. It's like little jaggedy pieces of glass that hook into your lungs and you can't expel. So your lung builds little cysts around them, like a oyster building trying to build a pearl around grain of sand. Well, that's all through your lungs. In the case of these fires, all the plastic that's burning, it's not just wood. Your house is like, you've got vinyl houses, you've got all of the asphalt shingles. It's a lot of petroleum and other chemicals that are in that ash. Petroleum derivatives, plastics. It's a terrible mix that's in there. Even glass that's broken and ground up in it, that's silica. That's very sharp also, like the volcanic dust. So the people that say, "Oh, I'm just going to leave for a week and then I'm going to go back," I'll get an RV and I'll park an RV in the middle of my one plot out of 5,000 in Pacific Palisades. No, you're not, because the government's going to say, "Sorry, environmental risk is too great. Nobody can be in there until it's all given the all clear." And by the time the all clear is given, it's going to be bulldozers and black rock. It's not going to be what it was. The people that are left there, they're never going back.
Somebody told me, I didn't confirm this, that the original arsonist that they arrested is already out. They let him go.
Yeah, and the illegal aliens, and and when I say the people that are out, I'm not talking about the wealthy people that live high up the hill next to James Woods. They've got insurance. They've got another house to stay in for now. They will rebuild. But what they're going to be looking out across is a wasteland, because the quarter acre and 1 acre and half acre plots that go for miles and miles and miles in Los Angeles, they're not going to be rebuilt. I mean, Scott Adams had a good breakdown like a day or two ago. All of the hurdles that are going to be in front of these people, it's just not going to be economically feasible to rebuild. Even if you had insurance, you're not going to have enough money to rebuild, and it's going to take years. Meantime, the EPA is going to say it's a biohazard zone. When that's rebuilt, it's going to be bulldozed flat and rebuilt as apartment blocks. And they'll say, "Oh, it's much better because now we have green spaces. All the people will live in these high-rise condos, and in between they'll have beautiful parks." That's how they'll sell it. But what evolved organically over many decades after World War II was based on homogenous, high IQ, high trust society. That's gone, and you can't organically repeat that process. That was a one-time unique window in time. That whole Beach Boys generation, that's gone. That window is closed. That bus left town.
What about the potential of this being a domino effect, where, especially after the whole Mangione, idea, where he's last time I checked, he had over 200,000 in GoFundMe of donations.
There's Mangione effect. There's homeless that have a grudge against society at large. Okay. Then you have the Antifa communist types that just hate capitalism. So, when you talk about accelerationists, you have accelerationists of the right, and you also have accelerationists of the left that are basically saying, like, let's get the party started. Like, let's just burn the whole thing down, burn, baby, burn. But another factor is, and this also goes to these Benedict Arnold traders that opened the door for these millions of savages. Mixed in with those millions of low IQ savages are tens of thousands of jihad, potential jihad cell terror cells. So one of the things that worries me about what Trump has been saying, I think that he's channeling Ronald Reagan like it's 1980 and it's the Jimmy Carter hostage crisis. Maybe because the Panama Canal's in the news, Jimmy Carter just died. So I think he's channeling Carter transition to Reagan too much, because there were the hostages from the embassy in Tehran for I think like 444 days, something like that. Jimmy Carter botched the rescue. Well, the military botched the rescue that Jimmy Carter ordered at Desert One. That was the abortive, the C-130, and the helicopter crashed. But Reagan came in and suddenly they were released, like just as Reagan was inaugurated. I think that Trump And I like the man. I wish him well. I hope for all the success. We need to clean out the deep state. We need to, put the lawfare people in jail if we can. But him threatening that, and he said it repeatedly and adamantly, if the hostages are not out by J20, there will be hell to pay. Well, Israel's already been, turning Gaza into Dresden with American 2,000-pound bombs that basically blow up the whole block at a time. It's been leaked. After October 7th, Israel's rules of engagement were if there's a chance of getting one Hamas fighter, it's acceptable to have 20 civilians as collateral damage. And the Hamas fighters were determined by an AI-generated data mining program called Lavender. So it's not like they had a secret Hamas list of, the roster of Hamas fighters. It's like a guy with his education, with his job, living where he does, has an X% chance of being a Hamas fighter. You're on the Lavender list. That means we can put a 2,000-pound bomb into your building and kill 20 civilians to try to get that one guy identified on the Lavender program that they think is a Hamas fighter. So I don't know what Trump thinks he's going to do to threaten Gazans, Hamas in Gaza over that. The other thing that's so different from 1980-81 with the Iranian hostage crisis, even though it was a revolutionary government in Iran that had, under Carter, the Shah of Iran, our ally, was thrown out. The Ayatollah came back in from Paris, where he'd been in exile. But very quickly, there was a government, a new government, a revolutionary government. But there was a government, a boss, chain of command. So somebody could give the order, release the hostages. Bang, 400. All the hostages are on an airplane. One airplane gone, crisis is over. Trump trying to channel Reagan is a big mistake because in Gaza, I'm not sure what the exact number is, that are still alive. Many of the hostages, some are known to be dead. Many of the hostages they think are alive, but may be dead. They're not going to announce that they're dead because they lose most of their hostage value if it's determined that they're dead. So in order to prevent some kind of a Israeli Defense Force commando raid that might have freed all of these hostages, like the raid on Entebbe, Uganda in 1976, they flew in C-130s, rescued the hostages. The terrorists have learned you've got to disperse them. That don't underestimate the Israelis' ability to pull a great commando raid. So you're not going to have 70 hostages like in a high school gym sitting there. They're going to be in twos and threes spread all through Gaza. And with the breakdown in communications among Hamas cells, their leader is killed. It's they don't maybe know for sure what is the proper chain of command, because when the leader was killed, one of the traditional things that will follow up with that is a psyop where you're putting out false commands, the Israelis would, or any country that in a similar circumstance will put out false communications saying so-and-so is now in charge, obey all of his orders. And it'll be very murky to Hamas, the remaining Hamas in Gaza, who really is in charge. So it'll be very hard for an order to be given down a pyramid chain of command, release all the hostages. Because some of these hostages will be held by people that won't believe that it's a legit command. Or they'll just say, forget it, I'm not. This isn't Iran, it's not 1980. I'm here for Allah, I'm ready to die. I'm not ever going to give up the hostages. So Trump threatening to pound Gaza to a level beyond what the IDF has already done, I don't think that is going to succeed like it did with Reagan and Iran. So who cares, Matt? What's the big deal? I don't care if they B-52 carpet bomb Gaza from Egypt to Lebanon. I just don't care, right? To from Egypt to Israel. I don't care. I get it. But when this happens, I think there's a very high likelihood that terror cells inside of America will be activated. And they will then go on more sabotage campaigns. The whole world has now seen how vulnerable America is to wildfires. I mean, if anybody missed the lesson, it's now completely obvious that if you go upwind on one of these high wind days and light a forest on fire, it's going to just go out of control. Well, if you have 10 guys in 10 cars, each with a case of road flares, and you just give them some road maps and tell them, you drive from Flagstaff, to Las Vegas, and every time you see some forest, throw a road flare in it. Every time you see a lot of dry brush and a dry forest, throw out a road flare. For 10 guys with 100, a couple hundred road flares could set the West on fire. And so it's not 1980. It's not Reagan and Iran. And if Trump thinks he's just going to pound Gaza into submission if we don't get our hostages back, if they just can't, maybe they're down there saying we would if we could, but only half of them are still alive. We don't have control over them, the people holding them. We can't release them. It's not possible. Trump does something to carry through on his threat, pound the crap out of Gaza, carpet bomb it. A wave of assassinations of suspected Hamas leaders, say in Egypt, in Bahrain, and Qatar. They activate terror cells in our country. They can set the West on fire. They can go after the power grid, other things that we've talked about, full October 7 kind of attacks. We're a lot of, I'm a boomer, Trump's an older boomer, but a lot of boomers are stuck in the Reagan paradigm, that if we just come in hard enough and make our threats loud enough, we're going to take back Panama, we're going to grab Greenland, we're going to make Canada a state. You say, well, he's kind of joking about most of that. But if he thinks, if he really carries through, if the hostages are not released, hope they are. I hope it all turns out great. If the hostages aren't released because there's no unitary command, where all the hostages are in one room, and he carpet bombs Gaza, rolling thunder, walking. Do you think that the rest of the world, the pro-Hamas people inside of the USA are just going to say, well, I guess he's like Reagan and we should all just knuckle under and get back to work? No, they're going to have, everybody has seen what you can do with a box of matches in California. It's not a secret.
Do you anticipate, you're seeing looting, you're seeing robbing, but do you see that escalating to where, the potential for this is...
Well, number one, they've programmed, the last decade, they've programmed thieves in California to say up to $1,000, just grab what you want. So there's a whole generation that's grown up from teenagers to adults with absolutely no moral qualms about stealing, right? They grew up from 12 to 22 with their older brother saying, oh yeah, just steal. Nobody goes to jail for stealing. It's California. So you're not going to deprogram that just by having Gavin Newsom saying, we're going to be really harsh on looters, or this new law means that the $999 thing is over. You've grown an entire generation of thieves that have absolutely no respect for the law. Gavin Newsom making threats, what does that mean? They know, because today criminals have just as good of communications as police. So the police on their scanners, whether they're encrypted or not, you can just watch all the blue lights and see that the blue lights are all right behind the red fire truck lights, directing traffic and trying to open pathways for evacuations. You own a little mom and pop jewelry store. Like I said, the police ain't coming. And the thieves know it. There's no magic supply of an extra 10,000 police. The police are not coming. And traditionally, they've had a very small, back to the Rodney King days, what's that, the 80s, 90s? back to that era, a lot of people don't think much about law enforcement numbers like per capita and per square mile. There was not a lot of LAPD compared to, say, New York. They relied on a real macho outward posture. They had a lot of cop movies and cop TV shows, and a psyop on the population that the cops in LA are tough, right? They're going to roll in hard. But in reality, there weren't that many. So when the Rodney King riots happened, that was one of the first times people realized, wow, there just aren't enough police to put out all these disturbances. There just aren't enough. If there's riots in 10 different places, there's no cops. The cops will just guard the mayor's house, the key buildings in town, the courthouses. But you, with your little business out in the suburbs, forget it. No cops. So the criminals know this. So yeah, Gavin Newsom saying we're going to put you in jail for life for looting means absolutely zero to them, because they know there's no police coming. They know it.
And on top of it, it's not it's not a pro-Second Amendment area either.
Right. And it's a bunch of liberals that have always depended on private security. I live in a gated community, right? A gate opens up, I drive in, and it's like the Zona Rosa, in the third world. And nothing bad can happen to me in my gated community. Well, you've just evacuated, and there's nobody guarding the gated community. The dirt bike, the motorbike goes right around your gate, which only goes like 10 feet out from the asphalt on both sides. Then it's just wild canyon land, right? So you've got no security. You never had a gun because you don't like guns. You're a liberal. Your security were the guards of your gated community. Well, they're all gone. I mean, a lot of police and firefighters haven't shown up. And this is one of the things we talk about in these breakdown scenarios is how many National Guard would report, how many police will report. They're worried about their own family. So you have a high AWOL rate among even like firefighters because they got their own house to worry about. There's a lot of most of them are great guys. They're fighting fires and they lost their own fire. They lost their own house. But a lot of them are just like, I know how screwed up it is. I'm not going to lose my family. So, yeah, I think it's going to get worse. And it's going to be a real sore for a long time, even after these fires go out, depending on how far it spreads. Like I said, it's a 3rd-degree burn. It's not a sunburn. It's like a 3rd-degree burn. And Los Angeles County, now we're saying it's like, it's a 3rd-degree burn over 10% of the body, right? You've got plenty left to graft. When it gets to be a 3rd-degree burn over a quarter of your body, you're getting into a real problem. Third degree burn as it increases, Los Angeles is going to be screwed up for a long time. It's going to be a federal basket case. Productive people are going to leave. They're not coming back.
How do you even sell your house there, though? Who would want to buy it?
Well, right now people are renting like apartments for $10,000 a month. The apartments that were going for $2,000 a month last week are $10,000 a month now because of supply and demand of all the displaced people. So this is not exactly making people happy either. Getting robbed, then they're going to say, well, that's gouging. It's another form of price gouging. You can't charge more rent than you were charging 6 months ago, and then people will just say, well, then I won't rent it. So it's like with the insurance. The insurance company said there's too much of a fire risk. We have to raise our premiums. State regulatory board said, no, you can't. You have to stay at the same premiums. So the insurance company said, fine, we're out of here. Good luck, everybody. Now you've got people with no insurance, no house, no bank account to speak of. And they'll never be able to go back and rebuild. I mean, at least in Western North Carolina, if you've got an RV on your property next, up the hill from the beautiful river, you can start cutting down trees and build a damn log cabin if it comes to that. But if you've got 1/4 acre with a 1,000 square foot house, in the middle of 1,000 more of them, and now it looks like one big ash pile, you're never going back. You're never going to rebuild there. They're going to declare it an EPA biohazard zone, give you a check at some point or not to move away, and then they're going to bulldoze it and build high rises. Or I think that's what they'll try to do.
I wonder if this is the igniter for something greater in terms of collapse of our system. Like if LA is a starting point, and then you'll see other people be emboldened to start fires.
Well, it's a harbinger. It's definitely a warning shot. This is the warning shot across the bow. This is the shells landing in front of the bow, like the reason for the warning shots in the bow. You see the big explosion in the water 100 feet in front of your ship. That's the gunboat telling you the next one's in your bridge. Okay, this is the warning shot. If Trump doesn't get the hostages out, and he said over and over again, he can't back down from that now. This is like George Bush, read my lips. No new taxes. Remember that? You can't, and I think he only said that once or a couple times. Trump has said over and over again, if the hostages aren't released, there will be hell to pay. Well, if the hostages aren't released and there's hell to pay, there's going to be echoes of that hell to pay here in the States, because these terror cells, many of whom have been in place for a long time, but many thousands more who have come in the last 4 years, they're going to activate. They're going to absolutely activate. They've all seen how easy it is to burn down an American city. And if not every place has Santa Ana winds and dry brush, but other places have other weaknesses, as we've talked about, just the big transformer substations, big electrical substations. They're just out in the open, easy pickings, low-hanging fruit. So I hope that the hostages are released, because if Trump goes ballistic on Gaza, it's not going to end there.
What a mess he's inheriting. I mean, you got Western North Carolina still, now this. I mean, you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars. Who's going to pay for it?
God bless Western North Carolina, because those people are, I'm generalizing, okay? It's always generalization. But they're tough people. The Appalachian stock, including people that just moved there fairly recently, they're pretty tough and independent people. They're used to blizzards. They're used to power outages, fires. They do that community support to a great degree, like Tokyo and Berlin after World War II, helping each other, putting up, let you stay on my property while you rebuild your property. But that's not Southern California. Southern California now is savage tribal land mixed in with the remnants of the old homogeneous population that built it. So I like these nature films, like I've seen where like the killer whales will attack a big whale and like try to bite its fins off to cripple it. The sharks are coming in from all directions. That's how I look at Los Angeles right now. It's like a giant crippled whale with sharks coming in from all directions, ripping at it, because the criminals know, no matter what Gavin Newsom says about harsh penalties for looting, you're on a dirt bike. You're a 19-year-old on a dirt bike. You think a cop in a four-wheel cop car is going to catch you? You think the cop is going to shoot you? No, it's California. You can't do that. So if the cop doesn't actually throw a net over you as you're escaping with your loot, what are they going to do? Put up a roadblock, you drive around the roadblock. You're on a dirt bike, 180 off the other direction. And then as soon as you're out of sight of the cops, they have to, in order to arrest you, they have to have their eyes on you the whole time. They can't just arrest you later when you're blended in with another 100 dirt bikes at another street takeover. So the criminals know this, that the concentrate, disperse, move, concentrate, disperse, move. They're way ahead of the cops' OODA loop. The Colonel Boyd's observe, orient, decide, act. The police are talking about, motorbikes looting in one neighborhood. By the time they send police cars there that they don't have, they've gone somewhere else. The criminals are way ahead of the cops in this kind of a fight, way ahead. Unless they did 19th century Texas Ranger rules, and they said, no motorbikes at all in this area, or we'll shoot to kill, that kind of thing, which they want. Everybody knows they won't do that. That arsonist was already released. They had all these witnesses with him setting a fire, but the police didn't see it. No probable cause. His lawyer sprung him. Do you think looters are worried? They're not worried.
They could care less.
Now, in Western North Carolina, if, guys from out of the area came up now, not talking about the initial period, but came up now to do some looting, they'd probably wind up in the dirt. They would wind up as a local legend. Those guys that came in to loot, and they never went out again. They never were seen again. But that's the difference between, mountain hill country in North Carolina and Southern California.
Where can people find you, Matt?
I'm on Twitter. I think I'm Matt_Bracken48 mostly, and I'm on Gab. I'm Matt Bracken at Gab also. And my website is Enemies, Foreign and Domestic. I'm on the road this week, and I only brought one book, but I do have one of my books. This one, Foreign Enemies and Traitors. But all my books you can get from me if you want to sign. But if you want the Audible or the Kindle versions, you have to go to Amazon, which is fine too. But I can sign them myself. And if you buy 3 at a time, I give you a discount because 3 or more, because it really, the postage goes way down for boxes of multiple books. Yeah, 20 each if there's more than 3, but otherwise 24 each. But these are not like little. These aren't those like survivalist books where you read 100 pages and you got to get the next book. These are like 500 pages books, big novels, major novels, if that's your thing. Yeah, and you can give them out as gifts if you want. But anyway, that's my book thing. I don't have merch. I have books.
And don't forget your Substack.
My books are my merch. Yeah, and I have a Matt Bracken Substack also, where I don't do too much, but I really do like Substack. I should do more. Like read about that motorbike warfare and apply that to Southern California right now. The police can never catch 100 kids on motorbikes. Just hopeless.
It happened in Cleveland. It was street bikes and cars, I think, too. But they were shutting down different interstates in downtown Cleveland, and the cops didn't get there. It took them 40 minutes.
Right. And if you have 20 or 30 motorbikes, 3 break off to do some looting, and then they just mix back in, what are the cops going to do? The cops can't make threats. They can't do anything.
That's my fear in LA, though, if this thing really, escalates into a point where, it becomes like a Mad Max.
Well, the locals realize the police are not coming, there's no 911. Then the locals who armed are going to see kids coming up the canyon on dirt bikes. They're going to shoot them.
They're just going to take their chances with dealing with the law later on, type of
thing.
Well,
it goes both ways. The criminals are beginning to realize that no police are coming. Well, it works both ways. The homeowner that pulls out his AR and plinks somebody on a dirt bike, he knows no cops are coming too. And in a week, it's just another bloated body. Nobody's coming to pick up. There's no Quincy coming around with a medical examiner truck. There's too much. They're still talking like, oh, there's 15 people dead. They have no idea how many people are dead in the ashes of those homes. So many elderly that bought that house in the 60s went for $50,000. Now they're in their 80s, and they can't. They only get to the store when the little county mobility van comes to pick them up. They didn't evacuate. They prayed. They just prayed, and they're going to be finding lots more people like that. So yeah, so 15 are dead. It's going to be way higher than that, and then the lung issues and everything else. But the criminals realize the police aren't coming, then the civilians are going to realize the same thing and say, well, if the police aren't going to take care of these looters on dirt bikes, then I will. And a little teeny 55 grain bullet going 3,000 feet per second. It's not like the cop shows where they pull out a pristine bullet and then they have the gun, so they shoot one through the gun and they put them under the microscope and they say, that's a match. That is not real life. Real life is there's nothing left of that bullet that's big enough to for sure know what caliber it is, right? If it even stays in the person. And there's just another dead body in the canyon with a dirt bike 20 feet away. And they'll find it all in 6 months, when it's coyotes are had it. So yeah, this is going to, I'm not saying to be a total breakdown of law and order, but they have to triage their efforts. They have to stay ahead of the fire. That requires all the fire department and all the police to do traffic control. That means nothing is left for the rest. Assuming they get this fire put out in a few days, God, hopefully that happens. Let there be rain. There'll still be a lot of looting, but it'll start dying down. But I don't see this as the beginning of like the American collapse. I see it as a harbinger, because criminals and our enemies are now watching television and going, I hate America. You mean that's all you have to do to wreck an American city? Wait for a windy night and start a fire? That's all you got to do? I can do that. That lesson is going around the world. And it's not just in America. I mean, they had fires in Greece and other places that were arson fires set by so-called refugees. The jihad refugees. They've had big fires in Greece and other places. Spain, big forest fires set by quote unquote refugees. So yeah, fire is a hell of a weapon. And in a country where there's, like in say the UK or most of Europe, very few privately owned firearms, the weapon of choice will be the Molotov cocktail. That'll do just as much damage thrown through a window as a grenade or a bomb. Maybe more, because it can burn a whole building down. And people are learning, the young criminal types and the young jihad types, they all know the utility of motorbikes. People on four wheels can't catch people on two wheels. It's just a fact of life. They're too fast and they go in places that the squad car just can't go. And up hills everybody remembers the beginning of Rambo First Blood, when Dennehy is trying to chase John Rambo, who's just stolen a motorbike after escaping from the Stallone escapes from the police department, right? What does he do? He knocks down somebody on the street, jumps on his motorbike. Dennehy's out in his squad car. Good luck with that. How far are you going to get in the woods chasing a guy on a dirt bike?
And then he gets out of the car and he's running. Dennehy's running up the hill. He's overweight and like trying to run like he's going to get Rambo.
That's right. Yeah, one of the best lines in there is Colonel, what's his name, the Green Beret,
Trotman.
Says, you better bring a lot of body bags. And it's what, for one guy? No, for your guys.
Yeah. Matt, as always, thanks for doing this, and look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks.
Mic drop.